Don't forget our gift cards at RitaYanez.com, and so am I. Under your bed. Turn on the light! Turn on the light! Turn on the light! Hi there, Pisces. This is your reading for the week of December 7th through 13th. I hope you're having a wonderful December already. I know that your reading looks crazy. Let's make sense of it, shall we? On Monday, the card that you've drawn is the Eight of Swords in reverse, which is a good sign because it lets me know that you're starting to think your way through situations. Now, these could be problems. These could be constraints. You might actually feel like your time tied down, that your restrictions have become somewhat unbearable. This is also a card that could indicate that you have a new idea, that you're starting to come to realizations that you hadn't before. So the thing that starts off this week is an ongoing situation, but this is the Mars and Uranus opposition, and it actually peaks on the 6th and 7th here. So you're starting the week off with the idea that you might be blaming someone else for situations, circumstances over the last 3 years of this Uranus-Pluto square. So with solar astrology, we know that Libra is your 8th house, and that's where Mars is. So just watch your temper. Make sure that you don't get more angry than necessary. So somebody else could actually bring up a situation about someone in the past. There could be somebody in your life now that brings up in some way, let's say an ex-spouse, an ex-partner, a former situation that is somewhat raised from the dead, if you will. Look at it, use your introspection, your reflection time to consider what you're going to do with this information or these resurrected feelings, but use them to get free. Put it to bed once and for all. Use December to help put things in perspective, to put it away. I don't even suggest to put it into mental storage. How about putting it in the mental shredder? Put it in perspective and make it go away in that sense. On Tuesday, you've got the Page of Swords in reverse. This is a card that could indicate these kind of conflicting conversations, discussions from the past, things coming up. And it doesn't seem like it's going to really serve a purpose in the future. It seems like it's going to be a situation that is better manifest as putting things to rest. We have Mercury squaring the North Node in Virgo, your 7th house. And so this is an indication that you should use this energy to, in essence, change your current relationship, improve it, make use of this energy, even though it is challenging, to make corrections if necessary. Your 7th solar house is Virgo, and so use this energy to improve your circumstances as it relates to relationship. And this doesn't have to be romantic. It can be business partnerships. It can be relationships with those people closest to you that you associate with. So if you're saying, Rita, I'm single, I don't ever plan on marrying again or dating anybody seriously in a committed way, that's fine. The sun at 16 degrees Sagittarius will trine Uranus in Aries, your solar second house. So maybe there is some harmonizing that would help you make corrections as they relate to your expenses. And this is a time for you to watch your expenses because you could have some unforeseen expenditures. They could be kind of surprising the way they come up. Though I do want to say that you're going to be tempted to spend more than you can afford. So this is as good a time as any to say, yeah, we're not going to blow all this money on Christmas, whether it's you and the dog or you and the spouse or you and the children. You know, this is a better time to plan for the future and maybe develop a present for yourself that involves putting some mad money away in a jar. Maybe you can stuff $20 underneath the butter dish and call it good and say that doesn't come out until an emergency or when I save enough to buy the thing I want. That's when I'll take the money out. On Wednesday, we have the Three of Swords in reverse. And this is when Mercury enters Capricorn, your solar 11th house. So there could be some involvement with your friends and or people at a distance, but keep in mind that these could be people at a distance or in proximity to you in the way that it relates to your friends. So it doesn't necessarily have to be people that are foreign at a distance. This could be conversations about your social network, your friend base, as it relates to them being foreign or having become estranged to you. We know this because the Three of Swords is talking about some old wounding that hasn't completely healed because there are some unexpressed or underexpressed emotions. And this could have to do with a very old problem. The sun in Sagittarius, your 10th house of career, could relate to somebody at work who figured into this, or somebody in your career experience that figured into this painful situation. Squaring Chiron in Pisces, your solar first house, could indicate that the healing needs to come from yourself. Don't look for others to validate or corroborate your experience as it relates to the painful. Find that within yourself. The Three of Swords sometimes is where we may have been a factor in our own wounding. We could have done something that hurt ourselves. We could have created a situation filled with animosity that really stems from some old wounding, some prior injury, whether it's weeks ago or many years ago or decades ago. But it's time to let that heal now, and the healing is going to require some openness, some vulnerability. This could be a situation where you've got to just make sense of and or come to terms with a situation that cannot be remedied in any other way. Think about what it would be like if your ex-spouse is deceased and you never got an apology from them, or if the wounding relates to your best friend and this was your mother and she is on the other side, she's deceased in this place, and you never got an explanation as to why she treated you a certain way when you were a little child. And so you could see that this will have to be where you allow the peace to come to you by way of acknowledging that this other person cannot in a physical way do the healing process with you. Whether to reject your claim that you felt rejected, or whether to validate that they didn't give you enough love and support, or that they didn't help you in a particular time, or words that were said. Okay, communication, Capricorn. So You know, you could have drawn friends into your world who, even without your understanding, your conscious understanding, you've drawn certain people in to represent almost in a Shakespearean way those that have wounded you, so you could say, well, all my friends are just great. And then we could see that somehow you have adopted friends that are either weaker than you, if you'll use that word loosely with me, more either subservient, doormat-like, even people that should have been friends and maybe have ended up lovers in some kind of confusion as to what their roles really should have been, which we do the best we can with what understanding we have at the time, right? Most people don't walk around trying to wreck their lives purposefully. It does happen, but it's not really as common as we'd find acceptable. It really isn't that common. So with that said, you may need to just understand that you've brought in people maybe even more powerful than you, as it were, more resilient, stronger, or that you've even drawn an enemy into your world and made him a frenemy to help you act out your role in the Shakespearean drama so that you could validate, you see, that's my friend. She rejected me because she's so mean. And really, you've attracted somebody into your life, or you wanted them there and they disappeared. That was more of a projection onto them of what you wanted to be. And you see, if that person isn't there for you, it's rejection and it's validated. And I know that this sounds like almost like some kind of psychological treatise, but this is just more of what we do every day. We are thinking, feeling beings. We feel and we rationalize. We think and we take things out of context to make them fit the construct of what we want to see happening. On Thursday, the card that you've drawn is the Ace of Wands in reverse. And this is a card that indicates there needs to be a renewal, but it is going to require some pruning. Similar to what we do with rose bushes in winter. We actually prune them. I've got to do one of my son's bushes, but we actually look at this and we have to have hope and trust that the procedure that we do, this pruning, this cutting away, this almost exorcism, will yield beautiful, full, blossoming growth of beauty and fragrance. And it is frightening. If you've ever done that, have you ever felt frightened? I feel frightened every time I pick up the pruning shears and go to it. In fact, that's why I'm actually, aside from it being bitter cold, but I've actually tried to avoid it because I see all this crazy growth that has more to do with a hybrid that has invaded that ancient rose bush. So there is an ivy that has literally created a symbiont relationship with this rose. But if I let the ivy take over, it will choke the rose. So at the same time, I have to say to myself, well, the green is better than nothing, as my mother says, because we've had a lot of barren terrain experiences out where we're at. And in winter, when we spend our time here, we look at this and say, Jesus, I hope it comes back. I hope I can remember this when in winter everything is desolate. And that's what the ace is talking about. This ace is saying you're going to have to trust that even if you have to remove sections of your life or people from it or memories or our attachments to negative, because that's all we've got. If, for example, if you're holding a candle, even let's say that it's a candle to the deceased or a candle to the ex-spouse, a candle to the experience, if you don't let go of that, sooner or later, it will burn you. And you might have become so numb from the layers of wax dripping on you, proverbially speaking, that you won't even feel that you're hurting yourself before it's too late. So take this time to prune these situations, experiences, people, if necessary. relationships to the anger from the past, because it's at least comfortable in that you recognize it. For example, if you continually blame your ex for your problems in life, you at least have an excuse, right? But if you prune the ex out of the equation and you look, you might be more afraid of how long you've been in this holding pattern, candle burning pattern, and that if you'd taken responsibility for your part in the situation, which I don't mean it at all to imply in abusive parent situations, where if you have a parent that was abusive or just not what you needed them to be, that's a little different, because I'm not ever going to sit here and say, yeah, you had a role in your mother beating you over the head with a wooden rolling pin. You didn't have any role. Even if you would have shouted at this person or tugged at them, they needed to not raise their hand to hurt you. So please don't think of it that way. Mars and Libra will be opposing Uranus in Aries this day. Again, an emphasis on your connection to someone from the past, or a situation that is long necessitated pruning somehow relates to not taking responsibility for the finances. And also, this could be a current situation where you have been enabling by not taking control of, let's say, the communal assets or the finances, or even an inheritance that maybe a lover is spending. Maybe you've become that bank balance for someone else, but in the end, you need to take responsibility if you've let this go on too long. And I think that it's something that can be done. At least the beginning of this can be done, because Venus in Scorpio, your ninth house, trines Neptune in Pisces, your solar first house. So, you've got to take responsibility, and you can, whether by self-dialogue or actually talking to a professional. And maybe this is a conversation with the dead. Maybe you've got an ancestor or some parent or some association with somebody who could be scorpionic or otherwise very foreign, but at some point you had some connection. That might be all it takes, is just recognizing that these things are a part of your experience, and that they just need to be put into perspective, or otherwise categorized or filed. Maybe they need to be filed way back at the bottom of the oldest, the filing cabinet in the recesses of your mind that's the farthest away, right? Maybe we don't really need to bring this up anymore. On Friday, we have the Strength card in reverse, so you may feel some difficulty or challenge in executing this kind of plan to redefine who you are in this moment at this time. And the Strength card in reverse could be very easily remedied. We've got Mars and Libra, well, quincunx in conjunct Chiron and Pisces. Again, there is some wounding here that can be stabilized and put on the proper path to healing. And sometimes it's slightly painful to do, but you become such a resilient person and so strong afterward that it's so worth it. It is so worth it. As we speak here, I'm looking at my left hand. I'd taken a really amazing fall. I think I told you guys not too long ago here, and it was because I was rushing in flip-flops after it had been raining, the annoying rain where I live, where it just isn't enough to satisfy me. It's just enough to whet the appetite, pun intended. Anyway, so I ran my butt out there because I was keeping my kids home, because they were both coming down with some throat problem, and probably just because we'd started the need to turn on the heat and to warm things up. And if you don't remember to put out the humidifier, it starts up with the tissues drying out, and here comes the susceptibility to virus and bacterial infections. So I was getting my eldest out of the house, and I was like, oh crap, the trash trucks are coming to pick up on Monday morning. And so I run out there, and I launched myself off the ground, ended up right on my abdomen, which was probably a brilliant looking accident. My eldest is like, oh my God, are you okay? And I wanted to just dust myself off, wondering how high did my dress fly up, because there's Rita in the rain in flip-flops in Idaho in a sundress. And so then it occurred to me I'd gotten most of the gravel out, but it was so tender I didn't want to dig the rest out, and I have a little piece in there. And I know that I think I got most of it out, but there still is a pinching quality to it. So eventually I will either have to open it up and take it out, or the doctor will. And I know, at least if I'm patient and I do it, but this is kind of symbolic to me of the strength card reversed under this kind of astrology of Mars in Libra and Chiron in Pisces, that even if we're the ones that have to do the pruning to ourselves, or the scrubbing of the wound, opening up of an old wound or cut, if you will, that's what this is like. And it will just become easier, right? If you just face the thing that haunts you, in essence, it will make things better eventually. And now you're like, yeah, Rita, Tower in reverse. On Saturday, we've got the Tower in reverse, which is really not a bad thing here. Saturday's Tower is talking about this new moon in Libra, believe it or not, is what really strikes me here. Excuse me, the new moon in Sagittarius, 19 Sagittarius. And this will occur on Friday the 11th there with the strength card in reverse. So there's absolutely a new beginning. And the Tower here is telling me that it will require basically a level of self-imposed destabilization, right? Like going in after the piece of gravel or sand or glass in a cut that we know it's going to be uncomfortable and will suck. And, then we'll have to care for it to keep it from getting infected while it's healing. And that's what the Tower here, I believe, says to you. And this is an uplifting, kind of positive feeling moon that will inspire you, believe it or not, to make these changes. Some of them could be sweeping, but I think that they are old somehow, really. They have something to do with the past experience, truly. And I think that this new moon is great because the sun is in the same location, really making us feel a sense of anticipation for something. But at the same time, it has an undercurrent of this Mars opposing this Pluto, this Mars in Libra, opposing this intense energy. Almost this Mars that wants us to even express some repressed anger. There could be some repressed anger. So watch the way that you do this, obviously safe and sane, right? Be careful that your excesses don't include like kicking everybody out of the house and their dogs. You know what I mean? Like where you're just like, get the hell out. I'm tired of it. I don't want this. And your health in December is just somewhat indicated as an area to protect, because these excesses could become almost conjoined with an inability to take care of yourself. Depression can often manifest in the stages where we notice it in people. They're not getting haircuts, they're not bathing, or they're just doing something that indicates the hygiene is not apparent. Okay, so take care of yourself, be good to yourself in the process, but watch addictions to people and addictions to situations and addictions to food and addictions to drink and addictions to prescription drugs that are really only masking the underlying problem, right? Xanax is a great drug. It can really bring a person down from an anxiety attack. I've used that drug before and almost realizing, geez, like when you go through a prolonged or protracted experience that's difficult, you end up needing to protect the body and its electrical system with a drug like Xanax to bring it down from the precipice of something. And yet at the same time, it has to be understood that these are temporary fixes for an underlining issue or a greater lesson that is too easily soothed, right? It's kind of like the proverbial moment the stoner can't take the real world anymore and checks out on the drug, or even the heroin addiction, which God forbid, that's just a terrible, terrible addiction, very similar to methamphetamines. And I really haven't decided which one's worse. Observing this in people, of course, is very frightening, but unless you're really in there, which nobody should attempt, in my opinion, don't take on that experience, but observe what it does to people and then when you say, yeah, how could a person get involved in speed or methamphetamine or a drug that so clearly, like heroin, will destroy you from the inside out, tons of brain cells at a time and tons of life years at a time. But, obviously we know we're able to say there is something so wrong here that needs to be corrected because this person keeps checking out rather than dealing with it. And the stoner on a much less, but sometimes as destructive level says, I can't take the real world, I'm out of here. And they go on their trip for a little while, to find some peace, but we know that it will never be enough until the real life is at peace with itself, when the human is at peace with its human experience, when the human is at peace with its traumas and woundings and able to soothe the wounded inner child and also allow that child to mature within the experience, right? So the Tower here, I think, is significant, certainly, and that aggression needs to be tempered, but at the same time, escaping is almost something that you guys are good at. And I've got my, wouldn't you know it, my 7th house is Pisces, and where do you think my moon is? I know. I've spent many years escaping into relationships, and part of it was an underlying cultural conditioning. My mother, in my second divorce, my first divorce, she wanted me to stay that way, and I probably should have. My second divorce, she said, you need to find another husband. Exactly the wrong words to say to somebody whose 7th house is Pisces with the moon there, because I thought, well, of course, if I'm married and I stabilize this situation, then I've made it all better, don't you see? And that's really the furthest from the truth. And I've told you guys, I may have mentioned it, it was only really this year that I said to my mother, why didn't you tell me, once I'd mastered being alone and come to enjoy it and being financially stable and seeing that my children are successful and stable and guarding that like a lioness, I had to ask my mother, why didn't you say this sooner? And she just had the most innocent and tragic expression on her face. She said, well, because that's what my mother said to me. And I realized, Jesus, there I was with my understanding that I'm breaking all of these cycles, but I do so even if I have to use myself as a tool, in the process to make sure that they don't continue this, that I don't repeat any of these experiences or project them onto my children or tell them that they should do one thing or another. I keep telling them to be independent, to think independently, to be self-willed, and to never accept a situation that they don't believe is healthy or good for them. And so with that, the Tower card is doing you a favor, my friend, very big one. So embrace it, enjoy it, and realize this isn't like the Tower upright. This is good because you could be avoiding a lot of future potential problems right here in this moment, right here in December, right here at this moment in time that you and I are connecting. Look, you're setting up to either use your experiences to prevent your downline from doing the same, maybe your children, maybe your grandchildren, and maybe this is where you're young enough to realize, hey, look, I don't have to go through these things. Look at the stuff that Rita just freely throws out there, right? I'm just giving it to you because I want you to see how it's all okay, but we have to make sure that we make sense of what these situations and lessons are so that we know what to do with them and maybe what not to do with them, maybe not to touch the damn things, and say, yeah, well, no, she went through that experience. I just won't let myself fall into that position. And if you take any of the wisdom of your elders, and maybe I'm an elder to you, maybe this is where you could say, whoa, yeah, I see. And, of course, we could talk about it if that's something that you want to join me on a journey of self-discovery. It sounds really lofty, but trust me, I'm just very basic. I'm just, it sounds good when I say it, though. So the Nine of Swords in reversed here on Sunday is talking about, I think, the impending Sun in Sagittarius squaring Jupiter in Virgo, which for you, again, we just have to watch the excesses in terms of your actions or inactions, or an inability to take action is also an escape route. But the Nine of Swords is talking about there is, again, this very strong potential for healing, for coming together, for realizing now you could think of some situations. If they're too fresh, then I wouldn't expect that they would feel as easy to heal at this stage. But for those of you that have got very old woundings or very old situations that the universe has somehow causing a regurgitation of, and you're like, what the hell is this? Why does this thing keep popping up? Why do these people keep popping up? I can tell you that I can raise my hand and say I've got one of those situations right now, just thinking, God, I thought that tolerating it or correcting it or managing it was the thing I had to do. And I realized, no, the thing I have to do is stand up and say, that's enough of this abuse. That's enough of this memory. That's enough of other people bringing it up. That's enough of this thing coming up. And then I realized, boy, I wasn't even angry the last time the situation came up. I was more like, drop it, please. I don't want any, let it go, please. The rest of us are trying to move on and finish raising children. And, I've got one going back to college soon and the other one going to college in a matter of months. And I'm almost like shitting bricks going, hey, look, I don't even have time for this bullshit. This peripheral stuff needs to stay there. And if you let me give it a roundhouse kick, it's going to be blasted out of the universe because it needs to just go away. There's other things that are more important here than my experiences, and they're people I have to finish working with, or at least set them on their trajectories, or I tell myself I'll never be free either. But here, Mercury in Capricorn, again, your solar 11th house was sextile Neptune in Pisces, and it is very much a potential, and you'll see this into next week, where some healing words could come from a complete stranger. Maybe it's me, although I don't think we're completely I'm strange. I'm not saying you're strange, but we must know each other in some way. Or at least it sounds like it's a possibility, or else you wouldn't be listening to my crap here. But Nine of Swords in reverse is telling you that this is very possible, that the healing could come through an experience that touches you. And it could be that one of your friends or a new friend or somebody in the outer circle, if you will, because the 11th house isn't necessarily a tight circle like the third, fourth, fifth, sixth houses. It really isn't. It could be somebody that you just meet, and it could be a funky guru. It could be something like this, and then you're able to make sense of it. So with that said, I would like to remind you that every day that you experience anything from utter complete joy to the depths of sorrow are what are taking you through your journey of experiences, your real meaning, and whatever meaning in life you find to grace and experience and complement your physical human experience here is really all about being a spiritual being. It's not about religion. It doesn't have to be. It can be if you choose it to be. If you insert that into your matrix, that's good. As long as it harms none, right? Old Witches' Creed, harm none, do as you will. The moment, like we're watching in the world, people hurting each other in the names of something that now gives the word religion the same despicable connotation that psychics, the word psychic has drawn. Now we can say spiritual. Now we can say empathetic. Now we can say soul-like and true, that we see people hurting each other, and that's not okay. So no one should ever hurt you. And likewise, you should not hurt yourself. And you should be very quick to not only forgive yourself, Pisces, but forgive others as well, even if it's just to utter the words like, of course I forgive this person. I mean, honestly, of course I do. I don't like the way I feel, though. I don't like the way the experience left me feeling. I feel bad about the experiences that I was involved in, others who may have been hurt by my own actions. And then as soon as you've picked up that idea, as soon as you've made sense of it, let it go, Pisces, because it really is done serving its purpose at that point.